It's a pleasure to welcome you to Mod TV today, Ryan, to talk
Thank you
about
for having me.
disruption. We're really pleased to have you on here. Um, so, first of all, do you mind telling us a little bit about how your interest in RPGs in the classroom started?
Absolutely. So I'm a primary school teacher that has been teaching grade twos now for the last 3 years. And I teach at a school that has been historically in the lower socioeconomic sector. And so a lot of students that we have come through are students that have well-being issues. Lots of things going on at home. They're exposed to a lot of adverse effects. And to see them at such a young age, I've always just thought, well, what's something that I can do in the classroom that will help give them the skills that they need going forward to deal with the things that life throws at them. And I stumbled onto RPGs. There's been lots of things online about people playing role-playing games, and they've talked about their experiences and the adverse effects that they've had, and how being a different character and exploring different things through games have helped them as an adult sort of process and deal with those things that they've had to deal with.
Mm.
And looking through all of that, based on my psych degree, I very much need some academic evidence to justify implementing something in my classroom. And having found nothing, or a very limited focus of things,
Yeah.
I decided, well, I should be the person to sort of investigate this, and it's led me here.
Absolutely. Had you played role-playing games much yourself before you brought them into the classroom?
Nothing tabletop wise.
Mhm.
So growing up, role playing games were online. Video games. Star Wars had a couple of role playing games when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate had an RPG I remember playing on the computer once, but never tabletop. And to be honest, I think it was watching Stranger Things on Netflix made me see these kids playing a tabletop game, and the way they explain their world and the things going on through a game made me a little bit more interested in the tabletop aspect. So I swung that way.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I guess following on from that, can you tell us a bit more about maybe, yeah, your research in particular, and maybe some of the methods that you're using, or how you're implementing that in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing the role playing games in the classroom now for 1.5 years, before any of the study part. And I went with Dungeons and Dragons because it's the oldest granddaddy godfather of all. And I was looking at trying to streamline some aspects of the games for kids, to see. There's lots of stats in D&D. The character sheets are 3 pages long. So at the time, I tried to condense it all down into a single A3 sheet of paper that the kids could stick things onto. And we started playing. And now, as I've moved into the study, I'm starting to look specifically at how the game affects resilience and skills that the kids pick up. So instead of looking at how to make a game easier or things like that, it's how can I take this game that exists as a teacher, something that's fairly cheap, something that's really easy to run. It's teacher-led. As a game master or a dungeon master, you're in charge, you make the rules. As a teacher, you're in that position all the time in every lesson you have. So it's not a big jump. And then looking at how the kids interact and behave, and what kind of skills they develop through gameplay. That they're sharing more, they're communicating, they're developing relationships with their peers, they're developing a better relationship with their teacher. Do these things become factors that will then protect and shield these kids as they are exposed to adverse effects? Can you neutralize the poor relationships that are happening at home with a more positive relationship at school with their teacher? Do they feel more connected in that sort of community? And because we're a very small school, I've found that the role playing that the kids have done has helped them sort of come together and trust each other a little bit more than they normally would have, because they have to stand in front of their peers and justify why they think they need to go and slay the monster instead of talking to it, or giving people pointers for how they should attack and things like that. So they're just really developing those skills. And so the study is going to move in, hopefully next year we'll be in the classroom taking some data, and we'll look at collecting through, there's a test called the Child and Youth Resilience Measure, which measures a child's different factors that may help build resilience. So do they have a positive relationship with their peers? Do they have positive relationships at home? Do they think that their school's a safe environment? Do they think their teacher's nurturing? That measures all of these things and sort of gives you an indication whether or not the kids are resilient or not resilient. And then we'll administer that before we play the game, just to see what their opinions are. We'll play the game and we'll take observations and see what the gameplay is like, the conversations that the kids are having. We'll do this for 2 terms, hopefully. Every week we'll play a game, similar to how people play their role-playing games in real life. And it's normally once a week or once every 2 weeks. And then at the end, after we collect interview data and video data and Dungeon Master logs and things like that, we'll administer the test again to see if their perception of their classroom environment has changed in that time.
Brilliant. It just sounds like such an amazing project.
Yeah.
Have there been any challenges with introducing this idea to the kids? Had they heard of RPGs before? Did they push back against it? What was it like when you first brought it in?
There's an excitement when you suggest starting something new in the class. A lot of the kids will probably never have heard of it because we're talking grade 2. So 7, 8-year-olds, maybe some of them have an idea, but they all want to know, is it on the computer? How does it work? Why am I getting this sheet of paper that you want me to write on? So there's a big learning curve at the start where they've got their own notions. And eventually I've just had to tell the children that I'll have to explain it as we go. Because it's very hard to tell the kids that we're going to play a game, but everything we do is up here. And all you're going to need is some dice. So that's been a bit of a challenge. But once they get into it, they really get into it. Children naturally have dramatic play and are dramatic when they go out, pretending to be cops and robbers or chasing each other or pretending to be that they're playing Minecraft in real life out on the playground. So they are just natural little actors. So once you introduce that they're acting as a character and things like that, they get right on board. We've started a new role-playing game in my class this year called No Thank You Evil. Made specifically for kids in this age range. And we were telling them about climbing the ladder up onto the Beamer-mobile. And the kids got up out of their chairs and they pretended they were climbing the ladder. And you told one of them, he rolled a natural 1. And I said, well, you're going to fall backwards and sort of have your foot caught in the ladder and fall backwards. And you'll be facing another person. And that other person screams, let's go. And so that's what they pretend to try and do. So there have been challenges, but it's just been a great to encounter them and watch the kids they love this.
I love that so much. And I think you're so right that most children naturally do process feelings and figure out the world through play. So to bring that into the classroom and to find ways to empower them and empower their imaginations within the classroom and as a team is so awesome. Did you find, have you faced much opposition from parents or teachers about using gaming in the classroom?
I haven't yet. I work with a very supportive staff at my school, so everyone's very interested to hear about what's going on. Occasionally, a few staff members have walked in and seen the kids engaged in this task, and you sort of just don't question it. If the kids are engaged, let them go and let them learn. So we've been quite supportive that way. But I have envisioned that there are some of the maybe some other schools or some other teachers probably think that that's not really what the classroom is for, or that sort of belongs in a drama class and not your normal classroom education. which is why I think this study is really important to show that you can bring this into the classroom. And it's got so many what we call cross-curricular links. We're not dealing with just drama education in a role-playing game. We're dealing with literacy and writing your character background, and numeracy in your dice rolls, and your stats and your modifiers, and you've got humanities. We're talking civics and citizenship. What is it to be a person in the world and follow the law, and the consequences for your actions? And is it fair that the orc has 12 orphan children that are his slaves? And there's all this sort of rich conversation that's going on with a role play game. I think it's quite easy to justify to naysayers that it should be in the classroom and being used.
Absolutely, I agree. Like, it just sounds like such an integrated approach to learning, but also a way of maybe getting some kids excited who aren't excited by traditional classroom learning.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And there's research that has suggested that children who aren't normally academically gifted, or just not they don't have an academic sense, writing is difficult for them. They're when you think about writing, they've got to think about what they want to do. They have to send the message to their arm. They have to start writing it. They have to make sure that their writing is spot on. And for someone like that is probably more physical, likes more of a dramatic element to the classroom. So it is a great way to engage those kids that may normally get left behind by traditional academics.
Absolutely. And we've just had a question come through on the chat, which is, Ryan, do you find that kids and adults approach those moral conundrums differently?
Oh, this is a good one. I absolutely do. Playing with some adults in a game and facing those moral things, sometimes I think the adults can be a bit frivolous and throwaway. A very cynical look at the world. Well, this is the way that the world works, and we don't necessarily have to like it, but that's the way the world operates. Whereas children see it from a point of view where they think, that's not right. Now, at school, another student wouldn't be able to lord over me just because they're bigger. You have a no bullying stance and things like that. And as children, it's still a very pure world where those things are a bit removed from them until they maybe get a bit older. So the kids, they do see these moral questions as right and wrong. I think they're a bit more black and white. The world shouldn't be like this, so we need to fix it. So that's what I've found, that the kids are a bit more pure when they deal with things, but they also, don't mind running in and hitting an orc over the head if they have to. Result that they want.
Justice. So Ryan, what do you hope that people, and I guess this can be, you can answer this as the students that you're working with, or future students or future educators that you might be drawing on your research or on this type of learning. What do you hope that these people or practitioners will take away from the work you're doing?
A great question. For, I guess, if I say family, students, and just other teachers and adults, for families, I really want to just highlight the great nature of board games and role-playing games. And as a child, we played board games, and I still, as an adult, quite love board games. At school, I've just started a Mr. Bartok's box of bodacious board games that the kids are going to be able to play with on a Friday and get around a table together and participate in this shared event, practice their turn-taking skills and their social interaction with one another.
And learn about the word bodacious while they're at it.
That's right. It's a good wow word.
Right word.
It was a bonkers box, but they didn't like that it was crazy. They thought it should be awesome. So we went with bodacious.
Fair.
I want families and kids to see the world of games as not just a digital thing. There's a tactile experience that they can engage with that is just awesome for them. And enriches imagination and all sorts of other things. For students themselves, the skills that they get, to take away some research that shows that there may be a link between tabletop role-playing games and the development of resilience. will be, I think, a step in the right direction for researchers to begin looking at. I think RPGs still have a bit of a stain on them from, the satanic panic and things like that. And
Yeah.
role-playing games have just come so far. They've gone from a couple of people that crawl through a dungeon to stories and narratives that are just really rich and deep, and go way beyond the dungeon crawl. It's a shared narrative experience where they are encountering things that are outside of themselves. And so to get some more academic light shining on that area, I think is really important. And for other teachers, it's a cheap thing that you can run. It's not an expensive hobby, or it's not an expensive thing to bring into your class. The D&D Essentials kit, which is going to be the basis of this study, is $35. A bargain by some standards of RPGs that are hundreds of dollars.
Definitely.
And it comes with everything you need to run it. You don't even have to have the kids roll the dice. You can do it for them. Or you can get a dice roller on iPads now, free. So to show teachers that it's not a scary concept, it shouldn't have a stain on its name. It's something that's cheap, affordable, and there's benefits to having it in your class 1-2 hours a week and having kids engage in this task. So I think that's what I really want people to take away from it.
Fantastic. We have a couple of questions coming through from the chat. I'll go with the first one. I'll see how many we can get through. So board games are making a comeback with adults as well as children, and lots of new tabletop games are being developed. Do you think adults can learn from these activities as well?
Absolutely. Adults can learn all of the same skills that the kids are learning, the focus of the kids. I think there's a brilliant YouTube video featuring a couple of famous people that have engaged in D&D, published by Wizards, and they all talk about, as adults, how playing the game has assisted them. They talk about their past traumas and some pretty rough stories of things that have happened in their lives, and how being able to play an elven princess one day a week has allowed them to step out of that life and experience a safe place to try new things out and a new way of processing things. So the elven princess can fight back in the game, but maybe necessarily in her life she can't. So it's a practice that skill in the game enough until you become confident as a person to try it in your real life.
That's so true.
And that was just one of the
I was going to say, that's
really
so true,
important
finding
things.
a community where you feel safe to do that to, and people that you can practice in front of, so that
Yes.
you can test out those skills. That's amazing.
It's to feel safe and encouraged by a group of people to have those experiments and practice. Maybe you're a shy person, but in the game you're playing a barbarian, and there's nothing shy about a barbarian. You're in, fists are blazing, no questions asked, kicking doors down. So sooner or later, hopefully, you'll absorb some of that character and some of those skills that you're practicing in that environment as an adult that you can apply to your real life and become a barbarian at work, and hopefully not smashing in too many heads, but you become a bit more confident in encountering those things coming your way.
And I found even with board games, because, with lockdown and the pandemic and we were all staying at home a lot more, I found myself playing board games again. And it was actually a really lovely escape from the news, because it required focus and strategy. And it was an activity that me and my housemate could engage in that was a little outside of the world we were living in.
Yes. To step away for a moment from all of the drama and things going on. On our return back to school from our isolation period, we did a little activity with the kids about things that they've lost versus the things that they found. And the things that they lost was sleepovers, friends, school, couldn't see some family. But some of the things they found, and we were telling the kids, an extra 7 weeks you never would have had with your family was discovered in this period. And They've gone for longer walks. They've pulled out board games that they may not have been engaging in and sitting around and finding time as a family, to be safe, to build a connection through this period, which I think has been a wonderful thing that people like you, Ashton, and other people have found all over the world. This chance to really connect, and board games and role play games are a brilliant way to do that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Um, I've got one more question from the chat as well. A lot of girls, especially young girls, can be intimidated by games that are associated as perhaps boys' games. Do you find these games appeal to a wide variety of genders or people across race as well?
If I can be honest, I think the girls in my classroom are actually more involved in this game than the boys are.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I've last year, some of the people I've worked with in my classroom, my aides, we were in shock at one of the girls that we normally had in the class, young year 2. She was very shy, she's very quiet, wouldn't say boo to a goose, and she was the first one to jump in and stab the bad guy out of nowhere, and she was ready to just say, "Don't mess with my friends." And so she's had this outlet to be a confident person. D&D might not necessarily be the right game for some girls or even for some boys. It's a very rules-heavy, complex game for beginners. There are so many new systems out there that you could use to engage girls and boys in different ways. No Thank You Evil that we're currently using is excellent because it's about using words to create your character. It's about saying that you have a kind princess. And so your princess is your character, and the kindness helps affect your attributes and abilities. It's things that kids might like a little bit more. You could play a game, Laser Kittens, where you play kittens in a RSPCA type situation, learning to control their lasers or their special powers. So while I think maybe RPGs are daunting to people, there are so many out there that there's bound to be one that girls will just say, "I love this and I want to play this." Boys will say, "I love this, I can't wait to get into it." And I think it's just about finding the right one. And it's okay to try one and say, "Not for me, I don't like it." I don't like percentile systems. So I look at them and I go, I'm a teacher, and the math involved in that just does my head in. So it's just about finding the right thing and having a look, have a Google, watch other people play online, see if it's what you'd like.
That's really good to hear, because I must say I've got quite a few friends who play D&D and have been playing for so long that it's very intimidating to think about entering that world. But I'd never even thought about looking into other avenues. Maybe Laser Kittens is my entry point. So Ryan, what's next for you with this project?
So we're actually coming up, because I'm in my first year, my confirmation is up in August. So I'm about to finalise my document for submission so that the university can put their stamp on it. And then after that, push through some ethics, and hopefully we're in the classroom next year and running the game with a group of year 6s and seeing what we can do.
Brilliant. And you mentioned a little bit before about your students reflecting on what they lost and also gained during COVID times. Is there anything that you think we should be thinking about as we head back into post-COVID-19 disruption?
Yeah, as we head back in, the things that you've lost are obviously going to be coming back. From a psych perspective, I say don't just jump in and rush in. For a lot of us, being isolated has just contributed to our anxiety. And for me, being confronted with 25 kids again straight away has been a little bit daunting. So don't push yourself. Relax. Go into it. If you found a board game ritual, stick with it. If you've got a routine that you've had in isolation, follow it through, especially for the kids. Keeping things structured and as close to the same as we can and introduce small changes is going to be a huge help.
Good advice. Thank you. I think I needed to hear some of that.
Yeah, that was really useful. And so Ryan, if people are interested in finding out more about your work or about RPGs in general, where would you suggest that we look?
So I put a lot of, I've started putting a lot of stuff on Instagram. You can find me at Dungeons and Classrooms. I put up some RPGs that I get for myself. I put up some RPG stuff that we play with kids, tips, tricks, some photos of myself being hit on the head by some students in game and things like that. So that would be the best place. And if people have questions about RPGs and what they can do for themselves or what they can do for their kids, they can always send a message that way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on today, and I can't wait to hear about how this research keeps going. It sounds amazing.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.